Welcome back to Stuff About Money They Didn't Teach You in School. I'm Xavier Angel, certified financial planner, and Erik Garcia, certified financial planner. How you doing today, Erik?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing good. Hey, before we get started, I gotta make an observation.
Mm-hmm.
So this is technically our 100th episode.
And we blew past 100.
We did.
So it's technically not. It's like technically 10 something,
102, 103, somewhere around there. But I gotta ask, you have a coat and tie on today, dude.
Coat and tie. You have a tie on.
I know.
This is like, like those like astronomical events where like certain stars align happens like once every 300 years or whatever. It's like Xavier and I are both wearing a tie on the same day. We didn't meet with attorneys and we didn't go to a funeral.
We went to breakfast.
We went to breakfast in a coat and tie. So like capture this moment, y'all. This probably won't happen again in our lifetime.
So, you know what? You're probably absolutely right. We probably never will be in the office together or go anywhere together while we're in a coat and tie. But I do want to say you look great today.
Thank you. So, funny story, since we are kind of reminiscing on this podcast, on this episode, right?
Correct. Yeah.
It's a funny story. With Xavier and I, we've been knowing each other since 2007. We met in an estate planning course together at the company that he was working for. They were sponsoring it, and I was the only outsider in that course. And Xavier would always wear a coat and tie, and we kept up after that course. And probably in 2015 or so, he was trying to get me to join one of our local associations, financial planning associations. And he was always wearing a coat and tie, and I never wore a tie. And ever since Xavier joined the firm, I'm pretty sure your tie wearing has dropped dramatically. So I'm sorry.
Well,
if I have been a bad influence on your dress code.
So my dress code changed. It was 2020, right? 2020 is when I left my previous firm and you and I joined as partners.
Mm-hmm.
That was COVID. And so I started coming to the office right after COVID, probably late June, early July of 2020. And I can remember walking in and both you and your dad said, you don't have to dress like that. You can relax. and you guys had polos and jeans on. And I think that is probably the last time that I wore a coat and tie on a regular basis. So now
I might drop this tie.
Yeah,
I might drop this tie before the episode's over.
Oh, so you're going to undress during the episode?
I'm not undressing. Well, you have to go to YouTube to find out.
Check Erik's YouTube out. All right. So Erik.
Yes, sir.
So we are celebrating 100 to 102 episodes that we've done.
That's right.
We started this in probably early 2021. So
not this show. So if we drop every 2 weeks, so that's how many? There's 52 weeks. So it's 26 episodes a year. We're at 100. Oh my God. Yeah, so it's like 26 episodes a year.
Mm-hmm.
It's been 4 years.
Yeah, it has.
Wow.
And so let's start with what was the reasoning behind, what were you thinking when you came up with this idea?
What was I thinking? Man, so this show was actually, this is the third podcast show that I've done. I always wanted to do, a good buddy of mine got me into doing video probably in 2015, 16, 17 or so. I started doing videos for the website, communicating with clients through video. Wanted to do a podcast. And a friend of ours in this space referred me to a podcast company that's specific to the financial industry. So my first episode had 9 episodes. I think they're still on our site, called Financial Planning. No, Plan Wisely with Erik Garcia. Did 9 episodes. Of those 9 episodes, all of them had guests. I actually had a host. I was kind of like the co-host, right? This is the first time podcast, and we kind of had a host, and he kind of walked me along. I had 2 of those 9. I think I had two of those guests were Dr. Matt Morris. So you've heard me talk about Dr. Matt Morris, family therapist, couples counselor. He and I have done a lot of collaborating together. We got to talk, and we're like, let's do a show together on, money and relationships. It's fantastic. So We ran 65 episodes during COVID called Building Us, Invest in Your Relationships. And then after the 65th episode, we decided to call that show quits for various reasons. Matt and I still collaborate. He's actually been a guest multiple times on the stuff about money. But as that show was coming to an end, I wanted to do something that was more money specific. And I was just in a conversation with another buddy of mine who's a podcaster, kind of kicking around ideas. There's actually in a chat group I'm in, and everyone was throwing around ideas. And my buddy Bradley finally said, just call it stuff about money they didn't teach you in school. I'm like, oh, it's brilliant.
And then that's when I came on. So that was at some point in 2021 or about there.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember you telling me, because this was my first time doing videos, recording. I just wasn't used to it. And I can remember you telling me you're going to have to do at least 100 videos or recordings before you feel comfortable about doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And was it clean the first several times I did it?
It's still not clean, Xavier.
I
go back. I go back when I first started doing video. My buddy Joey, that's what he told me. He's like, Erik, first of all, that's how you look on camera. That's how you look in real life. And that's how you sound in real life. So just get over it and deal with it. And he was the one who told me you better do 100 videos before you feel like you've done one.
And I can remember you giving me that advice. I also remember that over the last 3.5, 4 years, the frustration of the not getting something right and stopping and having to restart or having to go to our editor and edit things out.
Every now and then, y'all don't see behind the scenes, but every now and then they'll be like, hey, Riza, we need to cut that. Riza, this is actually not a message for you, but keep this in the podcast, Riza. But it's like, hey, Riza, we need to go back 30 seconds and start over. It's not live.
Right. And I can even remember one time Erik throws, you take your papers, you throw your papers up and, you walk out the room in frustration.
I've never walked out of the room. I love you, man. I've never walked out.
I wish I had that on record.
That was doing videos. That wasn't doing podcasts.
Same videos of podcasts, right? It is a grind. So
you're making me sound like a terrible person, Xavier.
No, I'm not. I've learned a lot from Erik when making videos to podcasting. One of the biggest. Well, I'm gonna throw that over to you, Erik. So, what is one of the most challenging things that you've come across when making podcasts, when doing podcasts?
Dealing with you.
Well, outside of dealing with me, right?
I've got a lot of friends who podcast. And a lot of people think that coming up with topics is hard. I mean, we have so many topics. I mean, we can just sit here and do podcast episodes on frequently asked questions from our clients, right? We learn so much from just working with our clients, and if it matters to them, it matters to other people. So the content is abundant. That's the easy part. The hard part is the consistency. Mm-hmm. It's showing up on a regular basis with the content. Calendars get busy. You get behind, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, we need to record today because we need to drop something next week. Mm-hmm. So I would say the consistency of recording. I mean, I'm maybe year 5 or 6 into podcasting. I would say that's probably the hardest part.
So and I would also say on top of that, keeping in that same frame, yeah, we get these topics, but is it easy coming once you have that topic? Is it a challenge to be able to figure out what direction you're going to go with that topic, and how do you navigate that?
I mean, it just depends. If there's doing a solo episode is very different than doing an episode you and I versus having a guest. So I think the topic is gonna kind of create the delivery, if you will, of the content. I will say there's a bit of a burden, not in a negative way, but I would say more of a responsibility. I feel that if we're going to talk about something to do it justice, one of our visions here of the firm is to really resource people to make wise financial decisions. The podcast is part of that vision. this is the reason I continue doing it, because it's an opportunity for people to hear what you and I think about financial topics, and to continue to stay in front of people or in their ears, so to speak, when they listen, to reinforce financial ideas. And I would say more than anything, and probably a passion of mine, is more the financial behaviors that are going to lead to people being successful and making good financial decisions. And the thing with behaviors is we need fierce accountability regularly. So the podcast kind of acts as that mechanism. That's why I do it. That's why I continue to do it. That's why when I sit down and think, man, this is a grind sometimes, but I sit back and this fits squarely in what we're trying to do here as a firm.
Mm. And I think that's a great segue into my next question for you. What would you say are the top lessons, or frequently we ask our guests, right? What is one thing about money you wish you would have known 20 years ago?
Yeah. And
so we get all different types of responses. And so out of those, I'm going to start with one of the ones that I think was powerful and real big, and we heard often, is I wish I would have known the power of compounding. Because if I would have known the power of compounding, I would have begun saving a lot earlier because of what I would have today. And I think that was one of our more popular responses.
Hands down, that was probably, we haven't had a guest in a while. We have some guests here and there, and we don't ask that question as often as we did, I think, because like everyone was saying the same thing. I wish I would have saved earlier, understanding compounding interest. And here's what's interesting. If you go to the last episode that we just dropped, it's about the seasonality of money. It's a solo episode. And I talk about like the seasons of money. And the reality is, if we don't always do this just for we don't want people to have to divulge their personal and financial lives publicly. But if you push a little deeper, like the reality is, like maybe you weren't in a position where you could really even take advantage of compounding interest. Maybe you really couldn't save. In retrospect, I should have saved, but you didn't know you were going to have the success that you had. So there's a little bit of like kind of this, I know you wish you would have done that earlier, but type of thing. And this is why we always talk about like just save. Even if it's not a lot of money, even if it's $25 a month, because saving is a habit, right? It's that behavior. Mm-hmm. And if you're not saving now, you're not going to save later. Right. You might. Let me rephrase that. You might. You might. But it's harder. It's going to be harder too. But if you have that habit already, it's just easier to keep going.
And thinking about that, what you kept saying about saving, right? One of the things that I remember most about one of our previous podcasts is the phrase, save before you spend, not spend before you save. Mm-hmm. And that has stuck with me since we've been doing these podcasts.
Say that again for me. Say it slower.
Save before you spend. Mm-hmm. Don't spend before you save.
Yeah. So if I get paid on the first every month, a deposit goes into my bank account, save first, and then spend. Don't spend after you're done. Don't save after you're done spending, because there's not going to be anything to save, right? That's the idea.
Right.
Even if it's $10, $5, $20, because it stacks. That compounding stacks, right?
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
So what's another lesson or something else that we've heard often over the course of the last 3.5 years that sticks with you, that resonates with you?
Man, I don't know if this is something that necessarily people said, but it's more of just an observation, and having these conversations, these regular conversations with people about money, either on the podcast or outside, is just the behavior side of money. I mean, this is something that I have just really leaned into. And this is the reason, if you're a regular listener, you notice that our intro is a little bit different than it was originally. Because originally, the podcast was going to be more about like the technical side of money. Let's educate people about what are mutual funds, what are ETFs. And I'm like, people really don't want to hear. People don't want, like, yes, we have other resources, other avenues to educate people. But at the end of the day, what seems to really drive people are their values, why money is important to them. And those financial decisions, most financial decisions are not made on spreadsheets. They're made with emotions. So really leaning into that behavior of money. Again, I don't know if anyone really has said that about something that they wish they would have known earlier. Mm-hmm. But we certainly have had several guests that talk about putting emotions before money decisions oftentimes leads to bad decisions.
Right. And I think a third lesson that really sticks out with me is, when I look at wealth, right? Wealth is built through consistency and
Mm.
intentionality, rather than luck, right? It just
Yeah.
doesn't happen overnight. You have to be intentional in what you're doing.
That's good.
Uh,
Yeah. I 100% agree with that.
So moving on from that, Eric,
Mhm.
what are give me some podcast and some guest highlights. If you had to, let's think about three guests that we had on. Who stands out to you?
I'm gonna let you go first because I wasn't prepared to answer that question. We had 100 and something episodes. Do you expect me to have all these remembered? I'll tell. Okay, I'll tell you.
No, I'll start if you want me to start.
No, I got it. I'll go. No, I'll go.
Okay.
I'll tell you again, kind of lean into this idea of behavior and money. There was a series that I did. You weren't on it, but it was a series I did with Dr. Matt Morris. If you remember the therapist who we did Building Us with. And the idea was it was targeted towards executives. Now, executives can be business owners, entrepreneurs, professionals, but people who are in positions of a lot of responsibility, who are making big decisions, who are leading people. And it was called Cultivate Success. And I think it was a 6-part series. And we just talked about different things that leaders and these executives deal with. So the first one was this idea of coaching, right? How do you know if you need a coach? The value of coaching. You and I have a business coach that we meet with twice a month. But how do you even know you need a coach? So Matt and I talked through that. We did one on the myth. I call it the myth of work-life balance. That when you're a business owner, when you're an executive, there's going to be balance doesn't always exist. Something is always going to demand more of your time. So we should look at balance in bigger time frames, not just like in the day. Like I'm only going to work 8 hours a week, 8 hours a day, then go home. But like in weeks and months and years is how we should look at balance. Like the stages, the seasons of business ownership, the seasons of leading people. Those types of things. And we talked about, executive decision making and leadership. That was a fun series to do.
Fun, but it's stuff that we're talking about on a regular basis as well. And so I think for me, one of the guests that I remember the most was early in when we were doing our episodes. And this was probably maybe within the first 6 months of doing our episodes, was with Billy Williams.
Oh, yeah.
And I can remember Billy saying, if you can't buy it twice, you probably don't need it.
You can't afford it.
You can't afford it. If you can't buy it twice, you can't afford it.
Man, that episode was chock full of Billyisms. So Billy Williams is a business mentor of mine from a few years back. And I love that. If you can't pay for it twice, you can't afford it.
Right. And that actually stuck with me. And since we did that, I start to think about everything that I do. I even have my daughter now, my youngest, and not quite in those words, but she'll come to us and she'll say, I don't need that. And we'll look at her like, really? And she's like, I don't need it. And she won't buy it. But that has stuck with me. And that's how I've tried to live my life now. If I can't pay for it twice, I can't afford it. The other quote that I can remember that stuck with me is, you don't need the biggest house on the block. All right. Or something to that effect. And I don't need to go out and buy the most expensive thing out there, because unless I know what's important to me, and I've got to know what's important to me. So Billy Williams is the one that sticks out to me.
Do you know the first episode of the Stuff About Money podcast? You know what it was?
What was it?
We had Dr. Matt on, and the title was Money, a Thermometer of Wellness for the Couple. And we talked about money and couples and decision-making.
I might have to go back and listen to Dr. Matt's episodes.
I also
like
enjoy.
You said, we collaborate with Dr. Matt, and I love collaborating with him.
I also enjoy, every year. In fact, I got him scheduled to come on here at the end of February. We're going to record. Is the episodes I do. It's become an annual tradition with Phil Blancato. He's the the chief markets guy at Osaic, the firm that we represent. So he's responsible for like billions and billions of dollars and manages portfolios for clients across the firm. And it's just always fun to get him on and his take on what's happening in the markets and his projection. Those are always he's always a good guest for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I enjoy him as well. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else that really stood out.
God, there's so many episodes. Like,
yeah,
man, like,
I mean,
I'm going through.
There's not anyone that I mean, they all were excellent guests. So if we look at behind the scenes,
okay.
and we look at what people don't see, what are two things that you think? What are two things that you think would be interesting for individuals to know that goes on between the scenes? Besides us going back and forth and joking around, what are some things behind the scenes that you think people would like?
You're talking about like in the production of the
right? Because I think that is challenging. It's time consuming.
You go first. You go first on this one.
For me, it's walking into the office and Erik saying, "Here's a topic. We're going to record in 15 minutes." And then scrambling to figure out, okay, let me go in here and let me look at this and let me do some research on numbers and all this other stuff. So that's the challenging part.
Do I move too fast for you?
You move extremely fast. So Erik gets it in his mind. He's like, we got to put an episode out. Where we don't have anything to put out. So I'll walk into the office and then I'll get something and then we've got to move forward. And we're recording 15 minutes after I find out what.
It's usually because we're supposed to record the week before and something came up. So then it's like, we got no choice. We're recording now.
Right.
Rarely have I sprung a topic on you without you having some more than 15 minutes of prep time.
Right.
Rarely.
So, no, true. Okay. You're right. So the other thing that I would say is growth, right? Growth and being comfortable with being in front of a camera and recording podcasts and videos. I think that the confidence has grown over the past 3 years because I feel that being on camera and recording and then putting it out there is completely different from standing on stage in front of people. I love talking. I love being on a stage, but being in the camera, when we initially started, I could feel myself drawing in and pulling back from the mic. So those are the two that stand out for me from behind the scenes.
Yeah. Oh man, behind the scenes, I would say that I feel that there's and I said this earlier, I alluded to this earlier, that there's a responsibility of the information that we share. I mean, this is not entertainment per se. Like we're saying things that could change people's lives. I mean, quite frankly, I mean, we talk about money. Money is a serious topic. So there's a weightiness to that, just to make sure that we are representing the topic in a way that people can digest. I think is maybe some of the thought process that goes behind it. How do we deliver this? How do we deliver this topic? How do we talk about this topic? A second thing, and I had it and it's eluding me. I should have written it down. This may be one of those moments where I say, "Hey, Riza."
Well, no, don't say, "Hey, Riza." I'm gonna bail you out on this one.
This is it. This is behind the scenes, right? This is it. This is the grind right here. You're talking and you're saying stuff and you forget where you are. And then you're like, "Oh my gosh, what was I saying?" Right? And you want to try to get back on track. I will say.
So I'm gonna get you back on track.
No, I'm on track. I know what it is.
Okay.
I know what it was. Unless you want to take me somewhere
else. Go ahead.
I absolutely detest. I hate. I push back when podcasters give prescriptive advice.
Ooh, that's good.
Like this is what you should do with your money. I don't presume to know anybody listening to this episode. I mean, I know people who listen, but like, I don't know your situation. I don't know the facts around your money situation. So much in this industry, so much of advice is, man, it really depends. Personal finance is as much personal as it is finance. So I am regularly trying to filter my words to not give prescriptive advice. If I ever say that this is something that people should do, there's usually a lot of context around it.
So we were at.
I try to make context. I try to put it in context.
Right. So at the conference, Erik and I were just at a conference. We just got back early this week. And at the conference, there were a lot of questions that would come up. And a lot of times the response would be, it depends. And we would get these looks like, well, okay, do you know or do you not know? But the response to it depends is because we can't answer that because we don't know everything behind the scenes when it comes to you. We don't know your finances. We don't know your habits. And so we can't give that prescriptive advice. And that's why we say depends.
Should I invest money or pay down my debt? Hell, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what you should do. I don't know anything about you. I don't know what kind of debt is it? How much do you have in debt? How much money do you earn? You know, what, like I know nothing. How can I tell you should always pay down debt first? And then come to find out your only debt is your house and it's a 3.25% mortgage rate. Like, right. Maybe that, I don't know. So I try to avoid giving prescriptive advice. I think is something that is hard to do because we're talking to a lot of people.
Right. So now I'm going to give you a broad question.
Okay.
If you had to think about 2 lessons that we discussed over the past 3.5 years, what 2 things do you hope all of our listeners walked away with?
Oh, this is easy. And for the record, y'all, Xavier was talking about me springing topics on him. We got back from this breakfast and he's like, hey, we got to record. I got the topic. And then he emailed it to me and then we hit record. So he does to me what he claimed I do to him, which I never do to him. 2 things.
Like I said, I've become more comfortable in podcasting now. So I'm now getting into my rhythm. All right. So give us those 2 things.
2 things. So 2 things that we want people to kind of take away, learn. If there's anything I want people to do, can I give you 3?
You can give us 3.
Awesome. So I would say the first one is, and these are building wealth. If you want to build wealth, there's 3 simple things that you need to do. And I would say almost every single podcast episode touches on one of these 3 in some way, shape, or form. Number 1 is spend less than you make. Bottom line. You cannot spend more than you make. We call that debt. You will never build wealth doing that. There may be seasons where you borrow to invest in a business, to buy a house. And in those years, technically you're spending more because you're we call it deficit spend. But the point is spend less than you make. Second, save as much as you can. Save for retirement, save for an emergency, save for the times when you're like, I don't want to work. I want to change jobs and I might need to take a pay cut for a season, but spend less than you make, save as much as you can. And then the third thing is don't do anything foolish with your money. I'm not going to define foolish from you. Everyone who heard me say don't do something foolish, you probably had a picture of what foolish looked like for you. That's probably what you shouldn't do with your money. So I would say those are the 3 things that I hope people take away from listening.
Powerful. All 3 of those are powerful. My last question for you, Erik. Let's talk about the future vision of the podcast because we've although we're still doing the podcast stuff about money. We are making some changes going forward. So tell us about that future vision and what it is.
Oh, I'm gonna share 2 episode ideas or series that I would love to do. And if anyone has any feedback on these, I welcome you. Shoot me an email, Erik, E-R-I-K, @plan-wisely.com, because I would love to do these. I would love to do a series that we interview different faith leaders. Okay. Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, different leaders of faith groups, and just talk about money in those particular faiths and just kind of like the philosophy about money, saving, spending, giving. That would be a fascinating series for me. So if you know any faith leaders who would love to hop on a podcast and call, I would love that. The second episode or series that I would love to do is kind of tied to this idea of behaviors and emotions around money. So I find that there's two really, really main emotions that drive people's money decisions. One is greed and the other is fear. But we can look at ambition. We can look at generosity. We can look at all these other values. So I think it would be interesting to find someone who can speak authoritatively on each of those topics, and just do an episode on those emotions and how they can impact good financial decisions and how they can impact bad financial decisions. So that would be fascinating to me.
I think so as well. So look, I mean, we're going to be looking forward to that. Our listeners are going to be looking forward to it. So I'm going to hold you.
But now that I said it, we have to do it, huh?
I am your accountability partner now. So we're going to hold your feet to the fire on that, that. So, in closing, I mean,
hold on.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to ask you the questions. What two things?
Oh,
oh yeah. Come on. You just talking about how comfortable you are. You're in the
no, I am.
Come on.
I am.
Two things you hope our listeners take away from our.
Oh, that they take away. Wow.
And you can't say what you said. That's cheating.
Oh, I know that's why I'm sitting here thinking. Two things that I hope our listeners take away from the podcast. This is outside the scope of money. So I'm going to say this. Okay. Anything that is hard should be uncomfortable. And if it's uncomfortable, then hey, Risa, go back 20 seconds. Let me rephrase that.
Should we leave that in? I think we should leave that in. Risa, leave that in.
Okay, Risa, leave that in.
I think we should leave that in. This is unplugged, raw, Xavier raw,
right? But no, if something is uncomfortable, it's hard. And if it's hard, keep moving forward. Don't stop doing what you're doing. Make it comfortable. Do it with intentionality.
Yeah, I tell my kids regularly, this is just hard. I'm like, well, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you can do it well.
Right.
And hard doesn't mean it's the wrong thing. Hard's good. You're right.
And so when I was thinking of that answer, I was thinking about doing the podcast, being able to sit here on video and answer questions like that. But I think it translates into finances as well, right? It's hard to save money. It's not easy.
Let's put a pin in that. You know why it's hard to save money?
Tell us.
Because you are making a conscious decision to rob yourself. I'm going to say that word rob. It's a pretty strong word, but to rob yourself of some pleasure today for some pleasure tomorrow.
Right.
Like I have $1,000, I can take a trip, or I can save it for this ambiguous thing called retirement. That's 30 years down the road. That is a hard decision to make.
And I think it goes back to something I said earlier. Save before you spend. Don't spend before you save. And from a behavioral standpoint, often when we get that check or when we get money, the first thing we want to do is go out there and pay bills off or buy whatever, it is the newest thing that's out there. And then after we do that, that's when we start to save. And because of that, saving, it becomes hard. It's uncomfortable. I just thought about this. It goes back to 2 years ago when we did the episode about me and the car, right? That episode came up because I had a client tell me, as we're sitting there and we're putting together a strategy for her, she looks at me and she says, "That's too hard. You're not doing it." And that's where that episode of me in the car and the savings and planning.
So real quick context, not to go into detail. Xavier made this commitment wanted to pay off some debts before he bought a new car, and I was holding him fiercely accountable. He was driving this old 2008 Honda Accord, and then the AC goes out in the middle of the New Orleans summer. And I remember that day, he walked into my office. I'm looking towards my door. He walked in. He's like, "Man, my AC stopped working." He goes, "But I'm not buying. I'm not getting a car." and he walks out, and then 5 minutes later he walks back in and he's having this conversation with himself, and I'm just why he walks out and it was like this like hour-long conversation. I'm like, dude, just buy the new car.
and I held out. I held out. I think I gave my car to my son in May. I did not buy a car until September.
It's commitment.
So,
all right, where do you see what's the future? You asked me where the future was. What do future episodes look like? What would you like to do?
So our future episodes, we're going to continue to do partner and bring guests on together. You guys will also begin to see, beginning this month, February, that we're going to have episodes where we do them by ourselves. We'll bring guests on, or we'll talk about stuff about money on our own.
Like solo episodes, not
solo episodes, correct. So that is coming down the pipeline.
Co-host with me anymore? Is that
no.
Am I getting fired public?
No. You're not getting fired. I think with this came about because my summers get extremely busy.
I've been doing solo episodes for a while, Xavier. Where you been?
So
I think two things. One is because the hard part, the grind of podcasting is the consistency. You know, sometimes one of us is available when the other is, so we'll record, and we try to bulk record as much as possible. But I think there's also, we kind of like have different things that we want to say sometimes, not competing things, not contradictory things.
Right.
Like we just have like soapboxes. We had a personal experience or something happened, and we just want to like expound and just have like a reflection on certain things. So we decided to have some of these solo episodes that I'm looking forward to. In fact, the last episode was a solo one that I did. So yeah.
So I think those are good things because it'll give the listeners just, especially when it's something personal that happened to us and we're now on here and we're talking about it, not the actual situation, but lessons learned from that. So that's something that I'm looking forward to doing in the future.
Very cool.
So to wrap up, I just want to tell all of our listeners we are thankful and grateful for you guys tuning in and listening to us. As always, if there is a topic that you guys would love us to discuss on the podcast, feel free to shoot us an email. Erik, ERIK, or Xavier, XAVIER, at plan-wisely.com. We'd love your feedback. We'd love your comments. Let us know what you would love for us to discuss.
Yeah. Look, we appreciate you. We do this. We want to add value. So let us know what we're doing that is good. Let us know what we're doing that you would like for us to do differently. But go out there, guys, make good decisions with money, plan wisely so that you can live confidently.